don't ever forget the person that serves you water. Those are the people that are really part of real life. And that stuck with me. I never forgot that. Every one of us is lucky to have something. I was fortunate to have a talent, a sense for a game that I love, but every one of us has some type of sense, and few of us get to live our passion or our dream. And I think I never forgot where I came from. For the rest of my career, there was some time I'd be tired. My wife would say, look at the kids in the eye, make sure you make their moment, because you should never forget that when you live your dream, you can make a difference with looking at a kid or saying hi. It's amazing.
You're listening to part 2 of my awesome conversation with Luc Robitaille, one of the greatest hockey players in the history of the National Hockey League and the president of the Los Angeles Kings. If you haven't yet listened to part 1, be sure to check that one out first. Now, without further ado, here's part 2 with the amazing Luc Robitaille. In your third year in the league, Bruce McNall, who owned the Kings, is a good friend of both of ours, incredible guy who's done some bad things, but some people have a lot of people we know have done some bad things. For those people who don't know, he had a movie studio, went bad. He owned a stamp and coin company. There was a chance he was going to go bankrupt, so he created fake invoices with the stamps and the coin, borrowed against that, had negotiated a deal with Sony to buy the team. It was 2 days away from closing, and an accountant found the mistake, and Bruce ended up going to jail. But everyone loved him. Yeah. And he brought hockey to LA like it had never been before. In 1993, it was your third year, he brought Wayne Gretzky to the Kings. Jimmy was the star player in that trade. Interesting enough, Jimmy had a better year in Edmonton than Wayne had here. He had 55 goals that season. Wayne was a hockey god in Canada, the best player to live. And even at the time, Brian Mulroney, the Prime Minister of Canada, had tried to stop the trade. Yeah. So tell me what it was like playing with Wayne Gretzky, how that influenced your life and career, and what did he tell you that one time when you waited a little too long to pass the puck?
I think for me, like Wayne Gretzky growing up, even though I scored a lot of goals and I learned to score goals, my career went, I really pride myself on being a playmaker. And it had everything to do from the first time I saw Wayne. I think I was 12 or 13 years old. I saw Wayne. So he was about 6 years older than me, I think.
You saw him live or you saw him on TV?
I saw him on TV, and I was floored. Like, I had never seen a player play like that. I couldn't believe it. And then from then on, it was like anything I could see or learn about Gretzky, I tried to learn. And I remember as a kid, like I had posters of Gretzky on my wall, and like if Edmonton would play, it was a 9 p.m. game. It was really late, and I'd sneak somewhere, and then my dad would be watching. And he didn't see me on the corner of the hallway trying to watch his game, but it was everything around my life was trying to be like Gretzky. So that was truly my hero. And so when he got traded to the Kings, and that was in 1988, I was so excited. I hadn't met him a couple of times because he owned our junior team, but I was like, when you meet your hero, you're like, hey, sir, how are you? And that was it, But I watched everything I can. I remember my first couple of years in the NHL, when I would play against Edmonton, this was my Super Bowl. It was like, because I wanted to impress Wayne Gretzky. I'm not even sure I was thinking about winning. I just want to impress Wayne Gretzky. But I do recall my first year, he missed a play, and he skated by our bench, and he in his breath, he goes, fuck. And I'm like, like, I couldn't believe he was swearing. Like, this is how much, when you see your idol, you think everything you do is perfect. And so I remember being floored. So when he came to the Kings, it was difficult for me because he was my idol. So like, I would look up to him and it didn't seem real. So like from that, I think the first year, it took me maybe 2 years to start saying, okay, wait a minute, he's just a human being like me. He's just normal, even though he's the greatest player to ever play the game. But what happened is I started playing with him, and because I had kind of tried to do my game after him, I was trying to do the same play as him, the same passes as him. Like even when Jimmy was scoring goals, I was priding myself on being a playmaker. And so one game, I'm on the ice. We get a 2-on-1, and the real play is you playing with Wayne Gretzky, the greatest playmaker in the history of the game. You give him the puck. But instead, I held on, and I was going to do a Wayne Gretzky play. So I waited, and I made the pass, and it got caught in the air by the defenseman. So when we got back to the bench, Wayne is just, like you talk with players all the time. He goes, "Hey, Lucky," he goes, "give it to me right away." And he goes, "I'll give it back to you. Don't worry." I'm like, okay. Like it wasn't a teammate to me. It was my hero. So then for the next, I think, 10 games, I was so nervous. Every time I got the puck, all I would do is throw it at him. Like it was like, here it is. And I clearly remember our coach after a bunch of games, he says, "I'm going to take you off of Wayne's line," because he says, you're too, you're not playing your game anymore. It's hurting us. It's hurting the team. It's hurting you. And in a way, I was so nervous to please him that it kind of felt a little bit of a relief at the time. A couple of years later, I was like, okay, now I know how to play with him and everything. But it did take me a couple of years.
Did he make you a better player and also a better person? And how?
Yeah, well, he made me a better player because I watched. Like I always knew I wasn't the best skater. I wasn't the strongest, so I had to be a student of the game. And I watched every player that would play well during the season, or every player that I thought was really good. I watched them, and then I would say, okay, these 10 things he's doing I can't do, but that one thing I can replicate that. So then I would practice that. Like I would watch Mike Bossy, and I read his book, and he said whenever he struggled, he shot 5-0. Because if you shoot 5-0 in hockey, you can't miss the net. If you pick the corner,
what does that
miss.
mean to people who don't know?
So you shoot between the legs. So if the goalie's standing there and you shoot between the legs, that means he's in the net. You're going to get a shot on net.
Right, but I mean, we're talking about that much room where the puck barely
there's
goes
not
through
a lot
the
of room,
goalie pads.
but if you aim there and you hit it, you're going to score. But if you don't, there's going to be a rebound. It's going to hit someone, and you keep getting shots on net. And the theory is if you miss the net, like Gretzky said, 100% of the shot, you don't miss the net or you don't take, you're never going to score. But if you hit the net, it gives you a chance. And when you're a point getter in sports, if you get a cheap point where it might be a rebound and goes in, it kind of boosts you up and it makes it. So that was an example I got from Michael Bossy. But watching me, Wayne, every day, I would watch all the little detail the game he was doing. And there was a lot of stuff that I couldn't do, but there's a lot of stuff that I'm like, oh, he's doing this. I could do that. So I would practice that over and over again. His way to shoot, the way he would read the ice, the way he would go on a spot where no one goes. And I started doing some of the stuff he was doing. And as a person, he was the ultimate teammate. No matter what, Wayne Gretzky, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe, Magic, their world is so big. It's very hard for people to understand how these people, they have no life. Like everybody looks up to them. It's really hard. The greatest businessman in the world will meet Michael Jordan. It's Michael Jordan. It's a whole different world. And Wayne was like that. And but what I appreciate about Wayne is he just want to be a teammate. He didn't care he understood he had to help promote the game, and he was always on. He never said a dumb quote. He never spoke out of line. But when no one was around, he just wanted to go to dinner with the boys. He wanted to be a teammate. And that's where we grew up, though. Like playing with Edmonton, they were a bunch of young guys, and he knew that's what it took to win. So that was fun for me to see and to enjoy that part.
I didn't know Wayne when he was playing. Obviously, I'm a huge fan, Red Wing fan. He used to kill me when he would beat us.
He used to kill the Red Wings.
And
that was
big time.
Gordie Howe was his player, so the Red Wings, he always was up for them.
Yeah, I know him now. He's my next door neighbor in Coeur d'Alene, and it's interesting because he's just a regular guy, and he's just walking around, and there's a lot of interesting people there, some well-known people, and then people like me, and most people just have no fame at all, regular people, and he's just one of the guys, and that's how I know him. Just not even one of the guys. He's just a human being. Walks around in shorts and flip-flops, and people are not fawning all over him. And it's as a person, you don't think about, if you're not famous or a superstar, the most famous person in the world, but you can't go out to dinner. Now he can go to dinner, but Tom Brady can't go to dinner. None of these superstars can go because it's too much. like you said, they don't have a life.
Well, it's people talk to you differently, I think like Wayne's, he just wants to be a normal person. He's just happy to be the greatest player to ever play the game,
Yeah.
And but at the end of the day, when you're an athlete, you still even watching Tom Brady from afar, not knowing him, he loves to be with his teammates. Part of the inside that locker room, that's a special world for any of us, and these guys don't get that when they go outside. It's very hard for them to see. So I know Wayne as an example, when he gets around a few of players and they're having beers, telling stories, he just lights up. He just he's got the best stories, and he just loves that part,
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I've had a few drinks with he and Janet before, and it's fun for me.
Yeah.
I mean,
it is awesome.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Stanley Cup. If you're listening or watching and don't know much about hockey, winning the Stanley Cup means you've won the championship. It's their version of winning the Super Bowl. Of the 10,000 plus NHL players who have competed over the last 50 plus years, about 75 to 80% have never won a Stanley Cup. You've won it once as a player in 2002 with the awesome Detroit Red Wings.
Yep.
And then, which had 10 Hall of Famers on the team.
Yeah.
And you've won it twice as as the president of the Los Angeles Kings. In 2000, let's redo that. Let me redo it when we're done. We need to redo it now. Okay. Perfect. The 10,000 plus National Hockey League players who have competed over the last 50 plus years, about 75 to 80% have never won a Stanley Cup. You've won it once as a player in 2002 with the awesome Detroit Red Wings, my favorite team, as you know, which had 10 Hall of Famers on the team. And is one of the best teams probably ever in history of the league. And twice as an executive with the Los Angeles Kings in 2012 and 2014. Can you tell us about the saying, if you can't beat them, join them, and how you had a different take on that when you were 35 years old, 16 years after you had been in the league? And what was your exact feeling at that exact moment when that final horn sounded, you became a Stanley Cup champion and lift that trophy on the top of your head?
Well, first of all, it was the greatest feeling ever, because we went, and when I was with the King, we went to the final in 1993. And I clearly remember looking at Rob Blake, that was a young player on my team, and said, we'll be back next year. Then the Kings didn't make the playoffs for 5 years. A year later, I got traded. Life just changed, and it's a hard trophy to win, and takes everything going the right way and so forth. So when I went to Detroit, I clearly remember the summer before we had beaten Detroit in the playoff before, and I was a free agent. And
Badly, you had beaten them.
Yeah, well, we were down to nothing. We ended up winning the series, but I became a free agent. I didn't know what I was going to become a free agent. I thought I was going to sign in LA, and I didn't know at the time. You don't know behind the scene. I thought they were screwing me, but that was not it. They had budget, and they had to go by it, and so looking at teams, I remember my kids were already registered in the school, so I thought, I got to stay on the West Coast. And my wife looks at me and she goes, well, who do you think has the best chance to win the Cup next year? And I go, Detroit. She goes, well, you guys just beat them. I go, yeah, but they had just signed or made a trade for Dominic Hasek, and I knew how good they were. So she goes, well, why don't you try to go there? I go, really? I go, but it's far, because I knew my wife was going to stay in LA. She goes, it doesn't matter whether you're in San Jose or Dallas or Detroit, you're still going to be playing hockey all the time. And so I said, okay, my agent called Ken Holland, who was the GM in Detroit, and he told them I was interested in going. And I think they thought I was already signing in LA at the time, and it took maybe an hour or so, and then we ended up making a deal, and I ended up going there. And going there, I knew I was really excited because it was going to be one of the greatest teams. And then about 3 weeks later, we signed Brett Hall.
Right.
He wasn't signed at the time. So coming on that team, there's a lot I learned, because I was always, one of the guys counted on to score goals. Now you go on a team, there's like 10 guys counted on. So you understand, to be successful, like any business, you're going to have a leader, but it takes everyone to be on board, to sacrifice a little bit to win. And that team, we had 10, like you said, 10 Hall of Fame, plus Scotty Bowman, our coach, was a Hall of Famer too. So I think the biggest thing that I learned is because, funny enough, I ended up playing a role on that team that was a lower role than anything I had, but I won. So I'm like, and I learned a lot that everybody's counted upon, at different times. And that made me a better person, a better leader. And then, winning the cup, though, for me, like, I didn't know we were going to win, but sure, the expectations were very high. But I clearly remember when I won, I was like, 16 fucking years. I was so happy that I knew my name was going to be in the cup. My family name was going to be on the Stanley Cup. And that just meant everything.
You're just watching that clock winding down, 3 minutes, 2:59, 2:58. And then, but what'd you feel when you stepped onto that ice? Everyone raise a hand. I've seen, they always do it. They throw their gloves, they throw their helmets, and you guys are all running in there, and you touch the cup. It's above your head. Yeah. What were you feeling?
Right before that, you said I was looking at the clock. When I was about 3 minutes left in the game, and what happened is I improved my defensive game. Like, we had other guys that would score goals, and I became a more responsible player to win. So at about 2.5, 3 minutes left in the game, Scotty Bowman named my line to go, and we were up 2-1. We were going to win the cup. But I remember I went out there. I was so pumped, but I was not going to screw it up for us. Like, there's not a chance. I was not going to take one chance, And I remember I forechecked, and I got the puck. I dumped it in. I went and forechecked again. And Brendan Shanahan laughed so hard because something happened where I got caught on the ice. There was like a bad change, and I ended up staying too long. But I couldn't come to the bench because if you come to the bench, it leaves a hole. So, and Brandon was taking me, was playing left wing, and finally we were able to get the puck and dump it in, and I turned around and I was going to sprint to the bench because I wanted him to jump. You want to win. And Shanny, he still tells the story how I toe picked like twice and I went head first on the ice, and he's looking at it. He's literally laughing at me because he knows how much I want to change, and he still laughs about that. Like, he couldn't believe how much I want to get back to the bench. Then he stepped on the ice and he scored to make it 3-1 with the empty net. We ended up winning, but so that was kind of a funny moment of looking at the clock at countdown. But when we won and Stevie Eisenman had the cup, and I think I was the second one they gave it to. They gave it to Dominic Hasek, then me. Yeah. And it was to lift it up in the air. I think it's 33 pounds, and it feels like it's nothing. And it's hard to describe that feeling because it's like, for that moment, you've achieved everything. Like, you're a kid, you're not even thinking to play in the NHL. You see Montreal Canadiens, you see that trophy, and and then finally you do it. There was such I'm not sure if it's a relief or just a total like happiness of everything that you work for. It finally paid off.
This episode of In Search of Excellence is brought to you by Sandy.com. SANDEE.com. We're a Yelp for beaches and have created the world's most comprehensive beach resource by cataloging more than 100 categories of information for every beach in the world, more than 100,000 beaches in 212 countries. Sandy.com provides beachgoers around the world with detailed, comprehensive, and easy-to-use information to help them plan their perfect beach getaway at home and abroad, and to make sure you're never disappointed by a beach visit again. Plan the perfect beach trip today by visiting Sandy.com. That's www.sandee.com. The link is in our show notes. Stay sandy, my friends. So each player on the team, the coaches, people on the staff, get the cup for a few days a year. The cup travels with the guy from the league who wears a jacket and tie, and he's with the cup at all time. He's not going to leave it with you, to do whatever. You had a party at your house.
Yep.
And it was really fun to be there. You had a truck with food. Yeah. In-N-Out truck. Yeah. Which was
In-N-Out. I got California Pizza Kitchen too, and
CPK there. And
I can't remember the donut company. Anyway, I had the whole California theme.
It was a great party, and it was fun to celebrate you. First of all, I'm just happy you won it with the Wings, right? I mean, obviously, I'm from Detroit, but what was interesting to me is you gave away a lot of your best memorabilia that night, and it was a raffle, and I was Just like, God, I'm 55, call my number. And I didn't get me. You gave away your World Cup your all your winning jerseys. Why did you do that? Why didn't you keep all that stuff?
You know what it was? Like that year, I had never done that in my career. That year when we started the playoffs, I started acquiring stuff in Detroit. Like I would grab pucks after games, and I would grab pucks on the ice. I kept sticks, and I would write down which game. Everything that I could think. Every round we'd win, like I'd win. I kept stuff coming back. I just had it, and at some point I remember thinking, well, if I win, we'll do a party and we'll be part of it. So, the party started. I remember thinking, well, invite all my friends from LA who've never seen the Cup, like all the real hockey fans. So we thought we'd get 200 people in our backyard, and I think we ended up at 400 or 500 people. It was like ridiculous. We had to cover the pool. We did we had a little roller rink. So my wife's really good at throwing parties. She said, we gotta have a theme. So we did like a poker night. So I said, I know what we're gonna do. Like whomever, we won't tell anybody, but if they win, they're gonna get tickets, and whomever wins the most trip will have more tickets. And we'll draw like stuff that I accumulated during the playoffs and throughout my career. And because I knew all the people that were there were people that they shared the love of the game.
Yeah.
And that was the idea. So we kind of made it fun in that way. And some of the stuff was really cool. I had a jersey signed by the whole team, the Stanley Cup winning team.
Yeah.
I had a lot of stuff like that.
You gave that one away or no?
Yeah, I gave that one away. Yeah, you didn't get it.
No, fuck.
But yeah, we so that was the idea behind that. Yeah.
So, a highlight for me that night was taking a picture with the cup.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I still have the picture. Look at the picture, and it's super fun. John Cooper is also a neighbor in Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah.
Great guy. And I go back and forth. During the summer, I have to work. I have my internship program, but Maston's up there for the summer. It's during the middle of COVID. He's won now as a coach 2 times in a row, back to back, which is very hard to do. And all I know is I get the call on a Wednesday night when I'm not there. Coop has the cup. We're all going to the clubhouse, and we're all going to party and drink from the cup. And literally, they filled it with alcohol and punch in these big straws, and I'm jealous. I'm taking it out on my wife. Like, I want to be there or whatever. And then I'm like, you're drinking out of a straw with 100 other people there during the middle of COVID. It's like, yeah, everyone's doing it.
Who cares?
We're drinking from the cup. But and then I'm hoping, okay, third year, I made it to the finals one more time, and didn't get it. So I've yet to drink from the cup. So hopefully one of these days I'll know someone. I'll be at the right place at the right time. But let's talk about going back to the draft. And I want to give you a statistic that you probably don't know. And we already talked about this before a little bit. If you're drafted in the 9th round, the odds are against you. Only 2.3% of 9th round draft picks go on to play in the league. For the 2.3% of 9-rounders who make it, the average career lasts 3.6 years. Through all your hard work and immense talent, fuck the scouts. You played 19 seasons and retired as one of the greatest players ever to lace up the skates. 2 years after retired, you were inducted into NHL Hall of Fame at 43 years old, the second youngest player ever to make it. I watched your speech 2 nights ago. It was awesome. It's been a few years since you probably gave it, but do you remember how you ended it? And what did it feel like to watch your parents crying in the audience?
Well, it was emotional. I can't remember the exact word, but I do remember because someone actually gave me a poster of me, and they wrote it. But it was like a message to all the kids that people don't believe in you. It's all the 9th rounder out there. Believe in yourself. And I can't remember.
Do you want me to read it to you?
Yeah, go ahead, read it to me.
Okay, go back up.
Then I'll come back.
Okay.
It's in my house, and I should know it, but I don't stop and look at my picture.
Keep going up, right there. Okay. Keep going up. It's the one before. So it said, "Here's the light that shines on a 9th round. Here's the light that shines on a 9th round draft pick of the world, who are too slow, who can't skate, don't have a chance of making it and compels them to achieve greatness anyway. This applies to all of us and all of the kids around the world. Be a light, follow your dreams. Anything is possible.
Yeah. Yeah, it actually came from our foundation. There was some of the kids at Echoes of Hope at the time. They had written something about being a light, and that's how this came about. Actually, to be honest, my wife helped me write that, but that's really what it meant. That was the message. Yeah.
Then looking at your parents.
Looking at my parents was overwhelming because you go through it, and when you don't play to get in the Hall of Fame, but
you knew at that point you were getting into the Hall of Fame.
Because you got the call and everything. But when you're there that night, and I looked down at my parents, and then it goes in your mind all the sacrifice they did. Like every one of us that's had success had someone to help us. No one could do it alone. You do it alone, you do the work alone, but there's always someone there. And my dad never was hard on me, from that standpoint. He was a hard man, at home. Sometimes he was impatient, but never with hockey. He just drove. He was at every game, never criticized my game. He just said, keep working hard. I think one time he questioned my game. It was one time in my whole life. But he never said anything, and then, when you're there in the Hall of Fame, you're like, wow, there's. Because then by that time I realized, how our life was and so forth. So it was, I could tell it meant the world to them, and then that was, from that standpoint, it was pretty overwhelming.
Roll up for a second because I want to see it. No, down for a second, not the other way. So many people look at the odds of doing something so difficult, right? I can't do that. I can't win an Academy Award. I can't play professional sports. I can't climb Mount Everest. They're very hard to do. What's your message to everyone out there in personal life and their business life who are looking at something, they don't do it, the odds are too small, and they fear of failing?
I think fear of failing sometimes makes you great. I remember hearing Bill Gates as his fear of failure, like what made him great every day. But it's what you do with it. It's like they say about courage. It's like in our game, it's really hard to block a shot. It's come 100 miles an hour. You know it's going to hurt. Guys still dive in front of it all the time. And that's courage. You know it's going to hurt. You know you're going to get hurt, but you're trying to win the game. You're going to block a shot. Now, you could take that into going to war, and you're taking a bullet for some reason to help your country. That's the same idea. You might die, but you still do it. And I think when someone is scared or is questioning something, if you're willing to push yourself, you're gonna have success. It's what you do when you're against the cliff. When you do when things are hard. What do you do when no one's looking? If you do something when no one's looking and you're trying to get better at it, first of all, you're picking the right thing. Because if you're only doing it when people are watching you, you probably got the wrong job or the wrong thing. It's like a great doctor. They try to get better all the time. If you're a heart surgeon, you're trying, even though you might be the best surgeon in the world, you're probably trying to learn all the time. That's what makes you the best. And that would be the same. To have any success, you got to try to do what other people are not willing to do, especially when no one's looking.
So one of the elements of my success has always been something I call extreme preparation. It's something I teach. It's something that I coach. When someone prepares 1 hour for something, I may do 10, 20, or sometimes even 30. I'm always the most prepared guy who walks into the room. You've talked about a little bit studying players, even though you were great, all-star. You've talked about waking up at 4:30 in the morning. Can you give some other examples of how extreme preparation was important to your success?
Extreme preparation is everything. I mean, I remember to give you an example, sometimes people will talk about our sport where we play 82 games a year, and they're like, oh, you might get tired and everything. And I'm always like, well, wait a minute. You only have to rest for 82 nights. That's it. You still got 260 or whatever, 280 nights. You can do whatever you want. But those 82 nights, You make sure you go to bed at 9 o'clock. Make sure the day before you have the proper meal. Like I would have a very, like I never said no. People will always say, Luc never says no. He signed autograph. He's there for fun. But what people don't know is like from the time I had to practice, let's say on a Wednesday and we played Thursday, like I was regiment. Like, I went to practice. If I was tired, I practiced a certain way. If I felt good, I practiced a certain way. Then when I started learning about working out with weights, I would do my weight program. I ate a certain meal at 1 o'clock after. If in the afternoon I wasn't sure what to do because I didn't want to sleep, I went to see a movie, Then I had a dinner at a certain time. Then I had my ritual to go to bed, my ritual to wake up in the morning. I knew exactly what I was going to do. And by the time I got to the game, every single game, I knew I had done everything right to be ready for that game. I wasn't good every game. I wasn't the best skater every game. There's some games I was tired. But if I knew I had to drink 6 bottles of water between 8 a.m. till game time, it was done. Like all those little things were done. I never played a game like people will say, some players will say, and I had to hear older players say, man, I wish I would have been a little bit more serious than this and that. And I remember thinking, I'll never say that. I'm going to be ready for every single game and every single one that I play. Like I said, I wasn't good every game. But I know one thing, like every single game, I was prepared the best way I could. And I've kind of lived my life like that. Even now on the business side, I'm always like, okay, we got to prepare. We got to have a plan. We got to stick to the plan. And it's not going to be good every day. We're going to have ups and downs, and that's kind of like the way we've built our franchise and kind of changed the culture that way.
Most people think that your actual performance starts the minute you walk in the room, but the best of the best do something different. The best of the best know that greatness starts the night before. They get a good night's sleep. They focus on their diet. They focus on the diet the night before, the day of their game. They get there early. The best ones get there first.
Yep.
And they stretch. They meet with the team. They meet with their teammates, their coach, and it's something that I think most people don't do. Certainly, I can't tell you how many people walk into my office and can't tell me the name of my dog. And you may not know the name of my dog, but if you're coming to my office for a meeting and you wanted something from me, I hope you would at least read my website. And it's right there.
That's right.
It's right there. And so and people don't know how to spell the name of one of the companies.
It's funny you say that because there were a time when I started with the Kings, because I didn't really understand the business side of it. Like I had to learn. And what I did is I hired people way smarter than me. But I remember sitting in the office, and I remember in this 2008 when we were looking to hire a marketing agency to help us. And these guys would come in, and I had kids that were really smart around me, and they were like, well, this agency looks really good. And I remember we had to pick an agency, and it was 5 of them that we met, and 3 of them came in. They had the wrong Kings logo. They had players that weren't playing for our team, on their presentation. And the kids would come out and they go, oh, they're really good. These guys have good number. And I'm like, well, we can't hire them. They're like, why? I go, they didn't even get it. They got the wrong logo. They got 2 players that don't play for us anymore. They play for other teams. You can't. You got to know that. I'm like, I used to play hockey, but I know that enough that you better pay attention to those details. Yep. It's ridiculous. And, I think those guys, I mean, because they were right out of college, they're looking at me like, what the hell does he know? But then I know over time, we kept working that way, and we're stickler to the LA King. If you're coming to visit us, you better know who we are.
Yeah. Are you looking for your next great gift to surprise a friend, colleague, or loved one? Bliss Beaches makes the perfect gift. This best-selling bright and beautiful coffee table book by Randall Kaplan features stunning drone photography from exotic beach locations around the world. It's the perfect housewarming gift, a great addition to any home or office, and a fun and creative alternative to bringing a bottle of wine to somebody's house for dinner. Bliss Beaches is available for purchase on Amazon, where it has glowing reviews and a 5-star rating. Get your next amazing gift and order a copy of Bliss Beaches by clicking the link on our show notes. As you know, I do a ton of coaching. I have interns every summer. I have 36 interns every summer. We have a guest speaker program, and people I coach are kids in college. They have anxiety. They don't really know what they want to do, like my kids have right now. They're seniors in college. And I coach a lot of young professionals, mid-professionals. And what's interesting is, and then I coach some athletes who have retired with just a ton of money. And I asked them to write down what are the things most important to them in their next job?
Yeah.
And we could probably sit here and name them, but one thing that never comes up ever is passion. So
Interesting.
how important is passion to our success? And what do you say to all the people out there where money is the number one most common answer?
It's funny you say that, because I think it's probably the most important. Like, even to a fault, sometimes we've hired people with the Kings because I knew they were a hockey player, they understood hockey, and they would help us run our business. And if you're passionate about your job, you're gonna want to get better. You're gonna want to. If you do it for money, or you're doing it, you probably, unfortunately, in the world, very few lucky people do a job that they're passionate about. But if you're like an ex-athlete or someone that's had like a good run, pick something you love so you can be passionate about it. That I tell my kids are in the entertainment business. I go, if you're doing something, you're not looking at the clock, you pick the right job. And that to me, it's everything. You got to be passionate. And my staff with the Kings, they know, like, I'm passionate about the franchise. Like, not perfect, we're gonna make mistakes and so forth, but we're gonna be passionate about trying to get better every day. I mean, sports a little bit different. There's the the mindfulness part of it. We're working on it and everything. It is still a result business. You got to win the games, and you got to fill up the building and so forth. But I would say passion is one of the most important thing on everything you do.
Your name's Lucky Luke, right? I mean, that's your nickname, and
Yeah.
I hear so. So your name is Lucky Luke, and I hear so many times that people who get successful are lucky, and especially when someone does really well, they're
Yeah.
envious, they're jealous. Randy got lucky, Luke got lucky. What do you say to all those people who say people are lucky, and is luck an ingredient of our success?
Well, yeah, like I could give it to you like as a hockey player. Like, yeah, like I was known as a goal scorer and I would get points and so forth, but more known as a goal scorer as my career went on. And then, but sometimes people would say Luke is streaky. Like, he'll go 4 or 5 games, he won't score, and then he'll score 4 or 5 games in a row. And then go, and then they would see me like the fifth game, I would get another goal, and they go, he's so lucky, the puck comes to him. But what they didn't realize is the 4, 5, 6 games that I didn't score, I was at the same place. I did the exact same thing, but the puck bounced the other way. But I kept going. I kept going to the front of the net. I would take a beating in front of the net. I kept going. And next thing you know, by game 7, it hits me in the pad and goes in. I go, he's so lucky, it always hits him. Then the next game, a rebound would lay right on my stick. He's so lucky, but I was always there. I kept doing it over and over again. And that's part of being lucky is, just keep doing something. And same thing with work. You bring your luck by preparation, by coming in, by, overwork, outworking other people. Like, there's no secret to it. People show up early. If you show up a little bit earlier, you might get ahead. If you're a little bit more prepared, you'll be better. And the next thing you know, people will say you're lucky, but you kind of know deep inside it's not luck. And then there's another thing too, is like I tell my kids, I can open doors for them. There's
Right.
always people that can open doors for you. Same thing with your kid. But once the door is open, it's up to our kids, or it's up to the people who open the door to do what they can with it. My door I was a 9th round. It was very slim. I had to push it open, but it still was an open door, and it was up to me to do something with it, and I did.
Of all the elements of success, I think the most important is work ethic and how hard you work. I teach something called philo. If you do philo, you're going to make it no matter where you are. First in, last out. You got to be
I
the
like
first
that.
one in
Philo.
that door.
Yeah.
You got to be the first one in that door and the last one to leave. And I don't care who's there before and who's there later.
Yeah.
People say, oh, you got to put in FaceTime. That's bullshit. I don't think it's bullshit, because if you're there before anyone, there's always something you can do to add value.
Yeah.
And there's always something you can do. I mean, people say, oh, I'm done with my work. Well, go do some additional work that no one asked you to do, and go show someone and be proactive and think about, how can I add value to my company or what I'm doing?
Yeah. There's no secret to it. I mean, it's in our world too. It's like You know, like I look at our GM, it's a 24-hour job. They're always available. You're always thinking, what can I do to get better? And like you're saying, last out, if you like what you do, you're reading about it. You're listening to podcasts. There's so many ways to learn and be better at the job that you like or the passion you like today. Like kids are really lucky. My son's a musician, and I remember him being a kid learning to play the guitar. I'm like, how'd you learn that song? He goes, I went on YouTube and I picked it up. You know, no one was pushing him to do it. He just did it. So that's a small example of whatever job you want to do. It's so much easier to get better at it today. You don't have to go to the library, literally drive there and read about it. You could go on the internet and get better. So at anything you do now.
Let's talk about being kind and being humble. You've been described as both. You are both. You do very nice things for people. Got my kids Zamboni rides, which is on my bucket list. So I still have not had my Zamboni ride.
We'll get you one.
but maybe one day. You have helped me get Stanley Cup tickets the year you won the game. And by the way, something really funny about that, we go to CPK right across from Staples Center. We're there early, right? I'm waiting for a table, and I'm sitting there, and it clears out. I'm not, okay, whatever. I was talking to my kids or whatever. And I'm looking up, and I'm thinking they're playing an old game. And so there's 3 minutes left in the first period. I realized, holy shit, I miss most of the first period. That was a great moment. But you're known as a down to earth guy. There was a father at our kid's school, had tickets. His son wanted to meet you, and I sent you an email. Can I send your email? Yes, he met you. Lit that kid up. And then in terms of being humble, you're very humble. I mean, you're humble. Tell us about the time that you were 17 years old, you're at a restaurant with your uncle, and he took you into the kitchen, and how that influenced your life.
I think that was an important moment. I mean, I think I grew up in the humble way where my dad was the guy that he would rather have a car that was all beat up but have a big engine. And if, when the guy's lining up to you at the stop sign, they got like a really nice shiny car and they're going, vroom, vroom, and my dad would be with a beat up car and he'd tell me the story, he'd win the race, like it's kind of, so that, I think there's that side of me. I always kind of kept that probably, but I think that I remember, that's right. I was 17. I had in my first year in junior, had a good year, and we went to a restaurant, and the manager came out and talked to my uncle and met with the owner of the restaurant, so not the manager. And my uncle says, when you go to a restaurant, every owner, if you have success, if you ever make it in the NHL, they'll want to meet with you. But he says, don't ever forget the person that serves you water. Those are the people that are really part of real life. And that stuck with me. I never forgot that. Though every one of us is lucky to have something. I was fortunate to have a talent, a sense for a game that I love, but every one of us has some type of sense, and few of us get to live our passion or our dream. And I think I never forgot where I came from. I never forgot that part. I never forgot the kid. I waited for this player to get an autograph, and I had a match, like not a box, but like a match thing that you unfold, and it was kind of funny. It was a player from the Montreal Canadiens. His name was Pierre Bouchard. He wasn't even a star, and I waited an hour, and I got to him, and he wrote PB. So years later, I make it to the NHL, funny enough, and we're on TV, and he's interviewing me. He's doing TV, and he was kind of a tough guy for the Canadiens, not a star. And he goes, "Hey, Luc, it's very nice to meet you on TV." And I go, "No, I met you before." He goes, "What?" Because he was a very nice man, too. And I go, "Yeah." I said, "I waited an hour to get your autograph." And I go, "You wrote PB." I go, "What the hell was that?" And you should have seen his face. But I think I never forgot that kid because I did kept that Packer match for years, just because it was my first NHL player to see and never forgot that feeling. So for the rest of my career, there was some time I'd be tired. My wife would say, look at the kids in the eye, make sure you make their moment because you should never forget that when you live your dream, you can make a difference with looking at a kid or saying hi. Just it's amazing. And then on the other thing, what you're saying about helping people, I think I've always had this philosophy. If you like, we run a hockey team and we try to not say no. I'm a big fan of the Four Seasons Hotel.
Yeah.
I always do tests. I'll call them in the middle of the night. Go, can you get this? They always seem to say they never say no. I love their culture, their way of being. They no matter what, they seem to be better in every hotel in the world. Everybody's happy there, and
they are.
So I try to emulate that with what we do.
You give me a signal back there. I've got like 15 minutes more. Okay. Okay, cool. I mean, you're fine on time, right? Yeah. So is it you has a time commitment or on your end? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
So
11:45, I'm out of here. I'm good.
So how important is being kind and humble in our success? Something people don't talk about or don't think about.
I think being humble is very important, but most people, it's very, very rare that I see highly successful people that are not humble. Now, it does happen in the middle range, where some people, it suddenly happened, they're not aware of it. But very successful people, they took a lot of work. They're very busy sometimes. They might be moody and everything, but most of them are humble. I would say the majority of them. And I think it has to do with, like you meet Tom Hanks, one of the most humble person you'll ever meet, and one of the most successful person. That's a great example for me, like to always look up to. I think it's very important because you should never forget where you come from. No matter what you do, how successful you are, we're all kids. We all had dreams, and you should never, forget that feeling once you made it, at whatever you're doing.
Guys, I'm going to go back to something that you skipped over, and then we'll continue where we left off before I forget. So you mentioned Pat Burns, who was a coach in the National Hockey League for 14 years, Hall of Fame coach. You played for him in the juniors.
Yeah.
You played for Barry Melrose.
Yep.
Hall of Fame coach. You played for Scotty Bowman for the Red Wings, Hall of Fame coach. As a hockey fan, I always look at the coaches and what they're doing. They sit there, they have no facial expression, they don't do anything, and it seems like the only thing they do is tap guys on the back. How important are coaches in hockey, and what do they actually do, and do they actually make you better players?
Yeah, well, coaches, they're very, very important because in hockey, unlike other sports, you play every 40 seconds, you go over, and a coach decides who's next. And then a lot of time the coach is looking at the other team and he's matching and he's figuring out. And then there's a technique to a coach to make sure you keep everybody involved. There's some guys that play more minutes, some guys that play less minutes, and you got to make sure each of them understand their roles, and that's the most important. The best one I've ever seen on making sure every player understood their roles within the team concept, even though everybody says, well, Scotty Bowman coached the greatest team of all time. That's the hardest thing to do because you got to keep every big ego in line. You got to make sure you make them all feel important. And Scotty was not the best communicator when he coached, but he was the best at the way he handled the bench, we call it, to making you feel that you had a role within the team concept. That I had never seen that, and that's why he won so many Stanley Cups. Now you get another guy like Pat Burns, who just was really scary. I had him in junior, and he was a scary, intimidating man, and he would come in. It wasn't just in fear because he really had fun. When you worked hard and you did right, he had more fun than any of us. So it was a fun ride to be with him. But when you lost, you were scared to come the next day to practice, and it was hard work and everything. But you got rewarded for doing it right. So every coach is different, but they're really important in hockey. And then also in today's game, now the preparation of knowing like the specialty units, and it's very technical now, and they can fix things quickly because of technology and so forth. So that's changed much. So I think coaches have become even more important.
All right, we're going to move forward now, and we're nearly at the end. You've always been very focused about giving back to the community.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about your foundation, how people can help, and what motivated you to give back? And in search of excellence, how important is it to give back?
I think in search of excellence, I think it's important when you live your dream to give back. And then when you're fortunate, if you make a little bit more money than people or you're doing well, whether sometimes it's financial, you should give back, but sometimes your time too. And for us, my wife and I, when we started Echoes of Hope, it actually started before that when Hurricane Katrina happened.
Yeah.
We had a big house in Utah and near Park City. And I remember we were watching, I think it was CNN, and we both had worked with numerous foundations. We'd worked with, I remember she actually is the one who taught me this. When we met in 1989, I had a billboard in town. It was a Lakers. It might have been, I can't remember if it was James Worthy, and it was a Dodger player, and I couldn't tell you who it was, and it was a Raiders player and myself. We were on a billboard, and it was to help. It was the foundation. It was with the police, and any kids that they could see were on the cusp of joining gangs. They were trying to help them. I can't remember the name of the foundation. And she says to me, she says, "Oh, you help these kids. You work for," she goes, "Well, what do you do?" And I'm driving. I'm like, "Oh, by the way, it was a date. I took her by my billboard." No, but like, funny enough, my answer was, "Well, I took the picture." And she's like, "What do you mean you took the picture?" She goes, No. We're going to meet these policemen and really help. So she actually helped me meeting kids. We started helping them. And in 1990, 91, we started working with some of those kids. And over the years, some of them have thrived. They have families and everything. We still see some kids once in a while that reappear in our life. But anyway, so move forward. So over the time, we've helped numerous foundations. I was the guy that a lot of people would ask me to do things. I would say yes, and she would participate with me. So anyway, 2005, when Hurricane Katrina happened, we both looked at each other. It was 5 or 6, I can't remember the exact date, and we said we should do something. So she says, "We're going to start a foundation. We're going to help some families." Because remember, we would see all the families didn't know where to go. So I didn't know it was being a training camp for us. I didn't know she would literally fly to. She didn't fly to. I think she flew to Boca Raton and then drove to New Orleans, and we picked 5 families, and then we relocated them into our home in Utah, and the charity was we were going to help them start a new life. And so over a year, they stayed with us, and then then we got them apartments, and we started a life. But what we saw is a lot of those families weren't well off already, and we saw some of the kids, the teenage kids, they had no drive, they didn't really understand, they weren't well off. So after that, we started getting involved more in Los Angeles and understanding the foster system. So we realized there was a hole, there was a gap, where a lot of people give a lot of money for kids, younger kids, but there was that gap when you age out of the system where 63% of those kids end up homeless. And then I think 3% of those kids graduate high school, and then I think 1 or 2% of that 3% end up graduating from college, and they all want to go to college. So our foundation is called Echoes of Hope, and we started with it's not just foster kids anymore. We help any kids that at risk that need help, but you have to graduate high school, and we see you before, and then we make sure you graduate college, and then we keep a lot of them, if they don't have parents, we end up being the parents, so we talk to them. But over the years, we have a group that they're our leadership group. We usually they're down to 60 to 70 kids a year. They come to our house. We do a lot of programming, but they help other kids. But on a year, I think last year we helped over 10,000 kids, where it was books, computers and everything and we're helping them. Sometimes it's just getting them a cell phone, like helping them in their apartments and so forth. So we get a lot of grants, and it's been very rewarding to meet kids later in life and say, hey, I'm married, I got 2 kids, I got a job, I'm an engineer, or I'm an architect. We have a kid who's a great attorney now. He's got married. Most of those kids tell us they always want to help kids like them.
Yeah.
So a lot of them work for a nonprofit, and we have one of our first kid. He's running his own nonprofit in Sacramento, working with the government, which is it's very rewarding to see them thrive in their life and help pay it forward to other kids.
Imagine LA is a charity here that takes families in transitional homelessness and takes them out. They keep the kids together, as you know, in the foster care system. They're often split up. The families don't get together. The shelters won't take full families. And I started this event with my friend John Terzian 9 years ago called the Imagine Ball. We just had it 2 weekends ago, and we've raised $5 million now. My grandmother was raised in foster care. She passed away 1 year ago at 104 years old. So that's a charity near and dear to me. And it's something that is very important to me. Also, we also had a family from Hurricane Katrina. Our rabbi at our temple sent around, hey, if you have extra room or whatever, please let me know. We have a guest home, and the family stayed there for a year. The family was not, the family was actually well off, and that's another story which we learned 9 months into it, and then they didn't want to leave either, because we kind of have a nice setup at home. So they didn't want to leave. So we're at the end of the show today, and I always conclude the podcast with something I call fill in the blank to excellence. Are you ready to play?
Okay, let's do it.
All right. The biggest lesson I've learned in my life is?
Never give up.
My number one professional goal is?
My family.
My number one, my biggest regret is?
Probably not spending enough time, with my family. I was so driven, but I probably wouldn't have had the success. It's kind of funny. It's a weird saying, but my biggest regret sometimes is probably not spending enough time, with family and that way.
The one thing in my life I'm the most proud of is?
My family.
The one thing in life that I'm the least proud of is?
I don't have anything I'm the least proud of. And that's a hard one. I've moved on from bad things so fast, so I have no regrets.
The one thing I've dreamed about doing for a long time but haven't done is?
Climbing a good tough mountain.
Any in particular?
I don't want to do anything crazy. Something a nice 14,000 footer in Colorado somewhere.
If you could go back and give your 21-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't overthink things. I think I got caught up overthinking and worried for no reason. Don't overthink.
If you could meet one person in the world, who would it be?
If I could be one person?
If you could meet one person in the world,
it would have been
be?
Thich Nhat Hanh.
It would have been who?
Thich Nhat Hanh. So he passed away now, but he was such a great speaker, and then you just hear him speak. It's he's a little bit in the vein of gosh, I'm forgetting his name right now. From Tibet,
The Dalai Lama?
The Dalai Lama. He's a little bit like that, but even more the way he spoke, it was so peaceful. You just heard him speak, and every time I heard him speak, I was mesmerized, so that would be. Besides that, I've been pretty fortunate to meet everybody I was looking to meet.
The one question you wish I had asked you but didn't is?
Oh. I don't know. I think he hit it all. He did pretty good. None.
Luc, it's been awesome having you as a guest. I know we've been trying to set this up for some time. I'm a huge fan. You're a great guy. You're a great friend. Thanks a lot for being here and continue to do some amazing things for LA, our community. Thank you so much.
Great to see you. Keep it going. This is great.
Thank you so much.